episode ng online series ni ng pamantasan na kung saan ang pagkatuto ay walang hangganan. Ito ang PNU Talks. Ako nga pala si Amyll Josielou Olano. I will be your home learning buddy for today. I graduated BSE major in English batch 2006. I finished my PhD in English language and is pursuing another doctorate degree in educational management. I used to be a faculty of PNU Mindanao, and currently I'm connected with Lantian International Kindergarten in Chifeng City in Mongolia as a lead foreign teacher. Today's talk is more of motivational in its nature, and as a language teacher who experienced teaching from preschool to high school to college to graduate school, I will be sharing some practical perspectives on the effect of being optimistic and having a cheerful nature in the success of teaching. Today's talk will be about accentuating positivity in teaching different age groups, cultures, and contexts. I believe I share the same belief with some of the Filipino teachers abroad who hurdle challenging situations in their teaching journey from the Philippines and even abroad. I am also talking about how teachers shifted and changed their lifestyles and teaching approaches. The perseverance and determination to have fun, to be happy no matter what, exemplifies the tenacity and resilience of the Filipinos. It is the hindi natitinag ang pusong Pilipino, or the resilience of the Filipino heart. We can crack jokes even in the challenging circumstances. The idea that something good could be found in the most challenging of circumstances is definitely a hallmark, a characteristic of the Filipino. Okay. Classroom environment is the most important factors, one of the most important factors affecting student learning. Students learn better when they view learning environment as positive and supportive. Positive environment is one in which students feel that they belong, they can trust others, they feel encouraged to tackle challenges, take risks, and ask questions. This can be powerful in the problem-solving based challenges where something not working doesn't equate to failure. Building a sense of community in the classroom is necessary to foster healthy attitudes towards learning. In my class, for example, kids need me to remain positive, and I show them how to do the same. My goal is to help students laugh at themselves, love themselves, and respect the world for its gifts. I am adult enough to take full ownership over my life, and I rarely use excuse for my shortcomings. And that's a very ideal thing. It's very positive, right? But hold up right there. In a teaching institution like PNU, I think we heard this line a lot of times already. You cannot give what you don't have. You cannot teach if you don't know what to teach. You cannot be positive if you're negative. I think we all go through to that phase that we feel like every day is a Monday, right? We wake up, then we hit snooze, then we hit snooze again, and then we just don't feel it. It feels like a lot of people are going through it at the moment, and everyone is trying to be positive. I think we've all been there when you really want something to happen, so we do all the positive thinking. We keep repeating over and over in our mind that we're going to get the outcome that we want. Well, setback after setback, we sigh, we shrug, and we remind ourselves to just keep thinking positive thoughts. We force ourselves to think that because we want something so bad, and what happens? We don't get the result we wanted. We then conclude that all the positive thinking was a waste of time. While it's true that this talk is of course to motivate my co-PNU ones, let us not forget to acknowledge our limitations, the reality. I think we have to start from there. Okay. Positivity is a way of seeing the world. It's an attitude that we can embrace no matter how difficult the circumstances are. It is a settled way of thinking, not forced. So, why forced positivity won't just work? We don't rely on positive thinking solely to get the outcome that we want, because we may end up feeling disappointed if we don't. And worse, blaming ourselves. By focusing purely on positivity, we have developed somehow an escapist mentality to other forms of human experiences like sadness, anger, feeling of being surprised, hunger, fear, and stress. We are following this predetermined narrative that positivity is absolute and everything else should be exterminated from our lives. It gives us the delusion that our lives are filled with joy, free from conflict and tribulation. Let's take, for example, the life of being a teacher in the barrio. In a study conducted by Mr. Ronald Orale about lived experiences of elementary teachers in remote school in Samar, he said that today remote schools still face scarcity of teaching resources, and teachers are continuously challenged in delivering quality basic education in the countryside. The conditions of far-flung schools require passionate, committed teachers to provide that much needed services. His study tried to document the lived experiences of 6 far-flung elementary school teachers in southwestern part of Samar. Experiences of teachers in this school are very similar to many teachers in geographically isolated and depressed area in the country. Okay? The school, their students, and community exhibit poverty. The school lacks the much needed teaching learning resources, and the families of the students are poor. Some skip meals and could not afford to buy school supplies for their use. Many students are slow learners, and some are sadly non-readers. Teachers need to ride a motorcycle and walk for kilometers in sometimes slippery or muddy trails to reach the school. And some students come from adjacent barangays, and they also walk daily going to school. Okay. Before, I traveled 3 hours daily for 2 years. Since we were the first teachers in that newly established school, there was a brief time where we conducted our classes in dilapidated room. No electricity, no water, and it was my choice, however, to be assigned there. Having said that, I have also my fair share of dejected moments where people thought that just by spreading positivity and optimism over social media, I can overcome that or those problems. I can endure challenges and empower them. But for some people, the reality is it is not pragmatic to avoid these problems simply by thinking positively. For those people that don't like their job, thinking about positive side of things will only prolong their agony or like their unhappiness. According to a psychology study by a Harvard psychologist, Susan David, in her book Emotional Agility, Get Unstuck, Embrace Change, and Thrive in Work and Life, She argues that we should instead pay close yet detached attention to our internal experiences. When harnessed, she asserts, the steady stream of thoughts, feelings, and personal narrative that makes up our inner self can become our best teachers. Our emotions can reveal what we value most, and we can then act on those values to evolve into our best selves. Resilient, stable, curious, courageous, compassionate, and empathetic. So, going back to my narrative about my experience, should me and my colleagues just sit in there and think of how unfortunate our situation was? No. To facilitate learning, with the help of our school head, we sometimes shed a portion of our salaries to buy school supplies for classroom use. And since I have the access to the internet at home, I tap organizations like Kaeskwela, Biblianef, Aral Pinoy, ERDA for books, and some generous friends share their blessing for food, slippers, and supplies. The efforts made might be temporary, and for sure it was never enough, but it gave us a sense of plenitude and positive feeling from those within our community, and it contributed to the improvement of our self-esteem. Though I was no longer there to witness the developments, and because I moved to teaching to college, our very active school head, together with almost new batches of teachers and the supportive LGU and DepEd, transformed the school to a national high school from an annex before, and several rooms were also added, and enrollment drastically increased. This achievement further added to this feeling of accomplishing something. Okay. Anything that is accomplished by a school through its school head and teachers will surely boost the confidence of the teachers and the community. Now, a good question is, what type of work environment do you prefer? Okay. The effects of happiness on individuals' health may be explained in the light of Brodden and Bill theory, which posits that positive affect helps to build resources that are effective in creating healthier living conditions, more specifically certain discrete positive emotions including joy, interest, contentment, pride, and love. Although phenomenologically distinct, all share the ability to build their enduring personal resources, ranging from physical and intellectual resources to social and psychological resources. Like happiness, self-esteem is also a dispositional trait that highly contributes to individuals' health and quality of life. It operates as a protective factor, buffering against the impact of adverse life events. As teachers, has there been times where our efforts are underappreciated, not appreciated, or perhaps while beating a deadline, our body doesn't seem to cooperate? We either get sick or just too tired to finish a task. What about the times that you feel happy, honored, and you feel your efforts are all worth it? Things like being awarded as a best faculty, or being able to serve your alma mater, or being featured in a TV station and raising the flag of Filipino teachers abroad. There is an evidence that self-esteem actively promotes the healthy functioning of individuals in managing their life aspects, generating positive social behavior, achievements, satisfaction, fulfillment, as well as the ability to cope with diseases. Conversely, people with low self-esteem are at higher risk of developing depression, anxiety, violence, substance abuse, and high-risk behavior. We are at our harshest critic, and nobody is as hard on ourselves as we are. Unfortunately, the negative bias we have about ourselves turns into a habit, and soon enough, constantly criticizing the way we are becomes so natural that we don't even realize we're doing it. So, to check for self-esteem issues, we can ask ourselves the following questions. When was I my best self at work? When was I growing at work? When was I engaged in virtuous actions at work? When did I feel really good at work? When was I validated by others? And when was I growing and developing to my full potential in the context of work? Try to think back at a time where you really feel great about yourself and what you were doing to feel that good. What has changed since then? The most important step is identifying what is causing you to feel low, because until you have done that, it's impossible to overcome low self-esteem. Okay. I remember when I was still teaching in high school, I had to file for leave for a month because of my health. When I was in higher education, I was brought to a hospital for blood transfusion. And in teaching kids, I have to be mindful to whenever I'm sick. Health does not only constitute as needing medical attention, it could also be the outlook of the workplace and even the surroundings. We should know when and how to unplug. Demanding job responsibilities and the increased ability to connect with smartphones, laptops, and Wi-Fi hotspots adds up into something that's seemingly useful but can actually be quite detrimental. Being able to work anytime, anywhere, this can be detrimental. It can lead to working all the time, everywhere. A healthy work balance means different things for different people, but in general, it's fulfilling a mix of both work and play. For some people, this means keeping fairly strict 9 to 5 office hours and then shutting down work and spending time with family or friends outside of that. Well, for some, it means working periods of long, intense hours and then enjoying a longer period of time off. Work-life balance is not about achieving an exact ratio, but rather finding the mix that works best for you, maintaining a decision of work and play that feels balanced and allows you to stay healthy outside of work too. In addition to knowing how often to step away from your work, it is also important to know what's needed to step away. Do you leave your laptop at the office so you're not tempted to open it at home? Do you turn off work notification on your phone? Do you completely cut off communication with the office on a family vacation? And part of staying fresh, okay, and healthy for work is actually stepping away from work as needed to. We can actually do these ways to boost our energy. Moving forward, let's talk about engagement and teaching voice. Okay. Your teaching voice is the one you use when you you're standing in front of your class. It's your professional voice, and often different in quality from your day-to-day speaking voice. So, how is your teaching voice? Well, teaching in higher education, it was not really a concern for me at all. But when I was teaching when I was teaching kindergarten or teaching kids, it was everything. I used to say good morning with a big smile on my face, but it's changed to just, how are you? Are you ready? Go, go, go. I'm using TPR, or the total physical response, to react to verbal input. TPR helps a student to learn with less stress, in a more fun and engaging manner without the burden of memorization. Even though it may be long ago, I'm sure we can remember the experience of listening to a teacher with a poor or weak voice. Whatever they were saying emerged out their mouths at the same monotonous rate, at the same monotonous pitch, tone, and volume, just as if it had been pushed through a blender. Our teaching voice is important, especially in teaching online. It's the vehicle for transmitting our knowledge, our passion, our concern. In short, all the things that made us excited about becoming a teacher in the first place. I really talk fast, but when I started teaching children, it really changed somehow. Teaching different levels of learners too means that you're dealing with different characteristics of students. With a shrill, fast-paced voice, we can be deemed weak and not worth listening to. And yet, if the pitch, those highs and lows of our voice is slightly lower, we slow down our tempo a bit, and a little variety of the emotional tone of our voice, we are offered the prospect of gaining the ears of our students. In high school and higher education, students can judge their teacher with great accuracy in less than 30 seconds. This ability is more widely known in psychological circles as thin slicing, which conveys that our human skill for quickly stereotyping and judging people for good or ill based on quick-fire experiences. We can protect our voice and nurture our voice through the following: resting, keeping hydrated, taking a little walk, and avoiding shouting and overusing our voice. But we still likely need to take the time for a little vocal training to maximize our powers of persuasion, especially that we're teaching now online, the new normal. Okay. Lastly, I have mentioned about resilience in the first part. Our resilience is in great part about our attitudes and behavior. Okay. It is the ability to bounce back, but that is a traditional definition. Modern definition states that resilience is about advancing despite adversity. Even though educators are not in the classroom right now, they are still working to provide and manage all of the changes and stress in their own personal lives. It is critical for education to continue taking time for their own self-care. Students are facing unprecedented levels of uncertainty, disruptions, and stress as they try to make sense of new and constant demands and requirements. If we ignore these stressors, they can significantly interfere with students' learning and performance. It is important to acknowledge our ability to be resilient. Okay. Is also connected to our circumstances which may have only limited ability to influence. Various mechanisms in our bodies, and specifically our brains, work in concert to make or less resilient across the lifespan. Being a resilient teacher abroad means being able to work. I'll show you a picture. Okay. Being a resilient teacher abroad means being able to adjust to challenges that is making myself very uncomfortable sometimes. Handling children from 2 years to 9 months to 4 years old is quite a challenge for me, but I was able to bounce back after a child cries, or if somebody gets sick, or if someone is throwing tantrums. I don't know how to skate, but since our school has an ice skating rink, that is really something that I need to hurdle. It's really quite a challenge for me. Another thing is the temperature. -17 temperature is also another thing. It was a big challenge, but as months passed, I can already walk from my school to my apartment. Now, we can probably ask ourselves the following questions to assess our resiliency. Okay? Describe a time when someone put a pressure on you. Describe the time when you get really stressed at work. What has been your greatest failure? What's your biggest pet peeve at work? Do you have a network of people who offer you support? Do you take good care of yourself and stick to routines? Do you keep your eyes on the big picture even in challenging situations? Well, no matter who we are, if we're oversaturated with stress when challenges appear, we will really break down. Having the skills to relax our mind and body on a consistent basis is very crucial to be able to bounce back from difficulties. Resiliency from staying focused on the big picture when things get tough, okay, is necessary. It can be easy to get sidetracked and assume our current bad chapter is the end of the story. When moments of disappointment occur, remember to just keep perspective, focus on the big picture, and realize that the current challenge isn't the end of the road. Keep your eye on the ball and the goal at the same time. Okay. Resilient people will possess many of these traits. We all have strengths and weaknesses in these areas, so no one will possess all of these qualities. Learning what our strengths are and understanding where we can develop improvements can help us give direction to build resiliency. The wonderful thing about positivity is that it doesn't affect just one area of our lives. It affects every area depending on our personalities and on our upbringing. We may not believe that our happiness really matters. So the question is, how do we bring positivity in our class? Okay, I can share to you some practical tips. First one is, give the students choices and ownership of the class. Simple things can make a big difference in our classrooms, as the students feel that we value their opinion and want them to be part of it. 2. Clearly state the goals and objectives of the lesson. By explicitly stating the learning objectives and goals of the lesson, the students can map out their mind what they need to accomplish during the class time. 3. Be positive and encouraging even in corrections. When a student make a pronunciation error or grammatical mistake, try saying good try or almost got it, and then do again with them. Next is define your behavioral expectations. All students know the rules in a regular classroom, but they aren't quite sure what to expect in this new virtual world. Take charge as a teacher and let them know your classroom rules, and then reinforce them. Starting a new session with clear rules for positive behavior management in the online classroom helps to ensure your overall success. And lastly, use rewards and praise. If they aren't encouraged by rewards such as stars or points, at least assure that you are praising them when they do well. I always try to end my class on a positive note as I say goodbye to my students, and by telling them that they did really well that day. I'm so happy with your progress, or see you next class. Based on experience, this works from preschool to graduate school. Okay. The happier you are, the more you lean into the best version of yourself. This creates a ripple effect. When you're filled with joy and peace, you love what you do, you become a better student, a better friend, and a better teacher. In a nutshell, positivity makes it easier to achieve our goals. That's because when you're in a positive frame of mind, you can make better decisions. You can look ahead and plot a course rather than just reacting to the setbacks you encounter. You don't get stuck with negative self-talk. So that's it. I-comment ang inyong katanungan o mga kuro-kuro tungkol sa ating episode ngayong araw na to. Huwag kalimutang i-like at i-share ng episode natin. Sa muli, ako po si Amyll Josielou Olano at sumainyo ang PNU Talks. Paalam!